what clothing is best to wear when training? So I will start off by saying, in my experience, if you're a really old man and you're using the leg press, do not wear short shorts. So I put a ask me anything on my Instagram. I did that on my stories quite a bit. And sometimes I get like the same questions, or I get some like, really good questions that you can't really answer in a story. You could, but I think this would be a better platform for this. So not only do I want to make these just to provide more content for you guys, but also I think it's a great opportunity to address some frequently asked questions so that when someone does ask me, I can just point them in this direction, say, okay, here's a video, the questions will be timestamped, and then you can just hop to your question or listen to them all. And that way you can have a very intricate answer rather than me having to text it out to clients or people interested on my Instagram who are, commenting on those Ask Me Anythings or jumping into the messages and whatnot. So I got a list compiled here from some recent ones. I was going to go back also and pull some good ones from some previous Ask Me Anything and make some videos on that. But I'll start with this one here with the list. So number one on the list is, why do people get cravings? I made a recent podcast on this. I'll take it up in this video here. But to summarize that, because I got kind of like intricate and probably, off track with it, but a very broad common diagnosis of cravings is stress. And the reason stress creates cravings is because of how it affects blood sugars and brain chemistry. And so what can we group as stress is we can look at like just the actual perceived stress, your job, relationships, everything that, I always mention, but also stress on the, your physiological symptoms like gut health and adrenal health and liver health and so on. So this stress can create like the symptom of dysregulated blood sugars and inflammation, which ultimately results in cravings. And so how it affects the brain chemistry is it can enlarge things such as your amygdala, which is you're like, I need this food or whatever. And this is where people come in and they're like, okay, this is where binge eating comes in with like big dysregulation of blood sugars. Now, what's causing that dysregulation of blood sugars? Once again, there's a lot of aspects at play. Bacteria can be a really big one, as mentioned before. Candida can alter brain chemistry to say, feed me sugar, because that's going to feed that bacteria and help it grow because it is a living organism. So those are the broad diagnosis of what causes cravings. So then how do we address these cravings? Is one, sometimes it's okay to I don't want to use the word give into the cravings, but understand that let's say you're craving pizza, it's okay to have a slice of pizza, right? Because if you're just constantly fighting these cravings and working trying to get through them, it's just going to end up worse. And so that is one strategy that you can use to kind of help deal with the cravings acutely is, okay, just have a slice of pizza. Now that doesn't always work for some individuals such as myself, because I will end up eating the entire pizza, but that is some ways that people can use. But I mentioned this in the podcast as well. Glutamine and lime juice, as lame as it is, can really help, but addressing that root cause, meditation, but even glucose disposal agents to help bring down blood sugar levels and balance them better can help reduce cravings. So number two now, how should you prepare for the gym for the first time? So if you're meaning stepping foot in the gym for the first time ever, I would recommend doing your research, because if you come into the gym with no plan at all, you're already going to be scared to step foot in the gym. It's a brand new place. We see there's a lot of, shall I say, toxicity going around on social media right now to do with the gym. And it's kind of scaring people to go into the gym, because not only because of that, but there are also other people and you don't want to look like a fool, or you may think you look like a fool. And we've seen that on social media as well. There's an actual really big trend right now. I've seen it on TikTok, a group of people who they play a video of somebody doing something what they deem is silly or whichever, and then the whole TikTok is making fun of them, and it's getting 1 million likes too. And so that doesn't help the cause or whatever. So doing your research ahead of time can help, because then you can come in with a, said plan possibly to feel a little more confident about what you're doing. Hiring a personal trainer can really help. They can get you comfortable. So even if it's just for a short duration, if you're already set on getting into the gym, you don't really need that motivation per se to get into the gym, but you need that knowledge, then yeah, a personal trainer can be great. But doing research ahead of hand can really benefit you and increase that confidence. But as well as just accept that you're new, like accept that you're going to make mistakes. You might do something deemed foolish. Is it foolish? No, you're learning. Everyone has to start somewhere. And I think people who have been in the industry or exercising, been in the gym for long periods of time, we tend to forget that we all started somewhere, right? I've done a lot of stupid stuff in the gym, thinking it was beneficial, might have looked really silly. Sometimes it was like, I think back to it, like training clients, and you're trying to MacGyver things and come up with these crazy ways that you think are super beneficial. And it's almost embarrassing to look back at it. And you can imagine, like, what was that client thinking when you're running around the gym and piecing things together and whatnot. But everybody starts somewhere, and, find a place that is going to be very welcoming. And so maybe a big commercial gym isn't the best choice. Maybe finding like a smaller gym. So for example, King's Fitness, where I contract out of and where I myself work out, that would be a great place. It's a very welcoming gym, very wonderful people. The owner, Leo King, is a wonderful, wonderful guy. Same with Charlotte, his wife. She's just not there as often. But I think that would be a great place to start. I'm sure there are many others. I only go to King, so that's all I know. But just planning ahead of time will help increase your confidence going into the gym. And then that's a good place to start there. So what do I do if I can't get to all of my equipment when supersetting? So there are other forms of supersetting you can do. So for example, let's say you need to superset the delt somehow. You can do it within one area using dumbbells and benches. So there's techniques that you can do. But like in the instance of this, answering this question, that's not very beneficial. So what I could say is yes, there are times where supersetting is kind of really the key. So for example, a systemic training phase. Like if you're not really supersetting, you're not going to create enough acid globally, so you might not be able to get that. But the alternative to that is, let's say we need to create a lot of acid, do sled pushes, right? Do battle ropes, do one thing that uses multiple box jumps, Olympic lifting stuff, like things that use multiple body parts in one straight set. Then that can help create a lot of acid globally kind of thing. Or like you get really MacGyver, which I like to use the word a lot, like myself. And so for example, like if I have people that need to do a tricep, I'll get it to do on one bench with dumbbells. So they'll do like a prone incline dumbbell lateral raise with a dumbbell upper back row, and then maybe with a calf press, and they just do it off the back of the bench or something like that, or abs or anything. And you kind of like construct the program so you're doing it all in that one little area instead of running all over the gym, right? So for example, if I program somebody a hack squat with a lat pull down, and they might not be able to get onto that lat. So what they could do is, I'm thinking of King's Fitness because there's so many places to do pull-ups. They could do a hack squat with pull-ups rather than going on a piece of equipment. There's things like that. Or if it's chest, let's say it's a hack squat with a dumbbell chest press, hack squat with push-ups, right? So there are other ways it doesn't have to be that specific exercise. But there are many options with supersetting that you can change to actually make it feasible for you. I do have some clients where sometimes they'll be like, I just can't do it. And then, there might be more of a mental block there, but there are actually gyms where you go at 5 p.m. and it's the busiest you've ever been. And you can't even get a dumbbell. I kind of just change the programming entirely. But I think the biggest key, if you can't get on equipment for supersetting, who cares? Do not stress yourself out. I used to be like that. You come in, you'd be like, oh man, somebody's on that trainer. I need that damn trainer. And I would just sit there and not want to work. It was kind of victim mentality. But now it's just okay, I can't get the trainer, so I'm just going to swap this exercise with this. There's always a way. Or instead of doing bilateral, so let's say there's, none of the dual cables are available, but a single cable is available, you can do unilateral work rather than bilateral, things like that. So there is lots of options there. what is the best way to track my progress at the gym? So now that boils down to what you are essentially trying to achieve. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're trying to build muscle. So yes, scale weight, making sure that you are gaining weight, but in conjunction with body photos, because it can be really easy to gain weight just by eating a bunch of crap food. And so you wouldn't want to entirely base it off of the scale weight. But what I mean by that is, like, let's say the scale weight's going up, but you still have, like, you're not getting excessive water retention or excessive fat gain, then you know you're progressing towards hypertrophy. Also, performance. So this is why it's really important to track your weights. So if you see, even if you went up 0.5 of a pound with one of your lifts, that is progression. If you went up an extra rep, that is progression. If you were able to decrease the rest periods, that is progression, right? So we look at that as progressive overload. If you were able to add a 1 second pause to the top of a movement, that is progression. So logging your workouts is super important. And not a lot of people do that. I am stupidly guilty for that. But I will say, because right now I am just exercising for the point of exercising. I'm not trying to build muscle. I'm just trying to get some nutrient partitioning going. Is that justification for not tracking? Not the greatest, no, but I'm not really worried if my lifts are better. Where I'm tracking progress is my gut health and stuff. But if you're trying to look at performance and like muscle gain and size, conditioning, whichever, then have a log book. Write down all your weights. Write down notes too, right? So let's say your rep range was 10. You hit that 10, but write down if that 10 was really hard to hit. So that's where rate of perceived exertion comes in. And so that's like, you can use that as a scale of 1 to 10. So 10 being like failure, the hardest thing, and 1 being the easiest. So let's say you hit a 9 RP with 10 reps, and then next week it was an 8 RP, that's progression, because that 10th rep was easier than last week. So just a logbook is probably the best way to track your progress in the gym. And then like outside of the gym doing that, let's say it's like fat loss or muscle gain, is photos and scale weight. Not always scale weight in terms of fat loss though, that's where photos really come in. But there's also getting a little more nuanced in tracking your metrics, like your heart rate variability, blood glucose levels, but that's some pretty technical stuff that I won't get into. But yeah, just a logbook in general is a great way to track. Now, if you're doing like conditioning stuff, you can track your heart rate. So let's say, for example, you do 3 exercises, and after that 4th set of each exercise, you check your heart rate. If that has come down next week, you're making progression in the gym. Or that has come down the next exercise, that's progression in the gym, right? So that's some ways you can track as well. How do I know when to change the stimulus in my training? So for this to make more sense, this is definitely from someone who has worked with me. And I do have a YouTube video I'll take here, going on about periodization and kind of like slightly explaining stimulus and stuff. There's a lot of debate whether you actually need to change your programming or not. I think it comes down to like more personal, because you look at, so for example, like a bodybuilder with good genetics and running performance enhancing drugs can run the same program for a really long time, right? But someone who's natural with poor genetics might want to change their stimulus. And some of the indicators of that will be, one, no more progression, like they're not increasing strength, they're not increasing cardiovascular conditioning, they're not increasing performance. But even away from the gym, things like your sleep and your mood and your digestion, if those start to take a hit, you might have reached a threshold that is now creating maladaptations, and then you'd want to change your style of training away from that to kind of detrain yourself in that, recover from whatever issue could be occurring, and then go back in with a little bit of desensitization to get those adaptations again. So that one's kind of nuanced. But if you check out that stimulus video, periodization video, that will make more sense for that one. What clothing is best to wear when training? So I will start off by saying, in my experience, if you're a really old man and you're using the leg press, do not wear short shorts. I'll let you think on that one. When it comes to like actual shirts and pants and everything, whatever you want, I don't think it doesn't really matter. Now, shoes, though, I find are very important. I believe that if you are lifting weights, you should be wearing flat shoes. So like Converse is a great one. If you're a power lifter, you can wear the powerlifting shoes where the heel is elevated. Now, I wouldn't necessarily wear that for a deadlift, but for a squat you could, or something like that, depending what you're trying to achieve. I don't know a lot about powerlifting rules and how the judging works and stuff. But like if you're trying to grow quads, heel elevation is better. If you're trying to go glutes, you wouldn't necessarily always need that heel elevation. Not saying it doesn't work, it wouldn't benefit some, but usually a flat foot for hitting more of the quads in the squat, for example. So I always recommend Converse. And the reason being is like, when you look at it from an evolutionary standpoint, shoes are actually wrecking a lot of things for us. Yeah, they're protecting our feet, but at the same time, they're really disrupting the function of everything. And I actually was overhearing a conversation one day about like knee pain and hip pain and stuff. And a lot of it starts with the feet. And where I really clued into this was someone actually like, we were in a group and they made this person roll out they went to like stretch their hamstrings and they can only stretch so far. And then they made the person roll out their foot and they were able to stretch further. Now, there's a few mechanisms at play there. One, it could be shutting off a safety mechanism like I've talked about before. I do need to make a whole video on that. But it also kind of showed me improving the functionality within the foot. It works as a chain and works its way up. So that's why like a lot of people neglect loading the tibia, so the front of the calf. That can lead to a lot of knee pain because that's what's responsible for stabilizing the knee, synergistically with the calves, ankles and such like that. So you want to wear flat feet where you can utilize your feet the most, like utilize the muscles in your foot the most. Don't go barefoot, dangerous stuff, but they do make certain shoes that are like kind of close to being barefoot that are like safe and hygienic and whatnot. But the most easiest answer to that, excuse me, is a pair of Converse. Just a pair of nice flat foot Converse. I find those are the best lifting shoes, best bang for your buck, right? You can go hardcore. Like I know a friend of mine in the gym, she spent like a ridiculous amount of money on these powerlifting shoes. And like if I was deep into that, I would do the same. But bang for your buck, Converse are like $50 to $100, if not less. So, unless I'm way off, but flat foot Converse, All Stars, I think, or they're called or something. I don't know. Just Google Converse. I want to train, but I feel exhausted after work. Should I train or not? I feel guilty that I haven't trained. Okay, this is a big one here. And I want to talk about this in the it's within context, okay? And what I mean by that is, so for example, if you are working a 12 to 14 hour shift that is like either very like psychologically demanding or like, okay, let's say in the terms of psychologically demanding, like it can be exhausting, like emotional and everything, like especially if you're like working at a hospital or something, of course you're going to be fatigued. And you come home and like, you got Rich Piana yelling at you saying, you got to get your butt to the gym and blah, 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 right? Like it might work against you. Like you need to recover, right? So maybe only exercise on your days off, right? Now if your goal is muscle building, then yeah, you're going to have to exercise. You're going to have to lift weights. But if your goal is fat loss, you don't have to lift weights all the time. It is about your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So like if you're on your feet all day, there is your workout, right? You're going to stimulate fat loss this way, and then you just manipulate the nutrition accordingly. So you don't need to feel guilty about not exercising, even if your goal is muscle building, right? You're like, even if you can get in like 3 times a week, it's better than nothing. Right? So try to take away the guilt from not going to the gym. It's not the end all be all. Now, if you got somebody who's like working a 9 to 5 shift and it's not very physically demanding or, psychologically, emotionally demanding or whichever, and you come home and you're too exhausted, once again, this goes back to the fighting the cravings. You're fighting something your body is telling you. And so there's an underlying root cause that needs to be addressed of why you're not producing energy. Good example, a client of mine, he's got no normal commensal flora. He's not producing adequate neurotransmitters to provide him energy, so he's lethargic all the time. This will improve as we begin to populate, but that's an example. So it's not a matter of, oh man, you just need to put your big boy pants on and get to the gym and, Arnold Schwarzenegger, whatever. That stuff infuriates me. It's no, you have an underlying root issue that needs to be addressed. You're not sleeping well. We got to address that. We got to fix all these things before we start putting you in the gym because you're not going to be able to recover from it. So there's no need to feel guilty about that, right? There should never be guilt around the gym ever. It's just a recipe for disaster, right? And then in the context of somebody, let's say you have like a very physically demanding job, like you work, I don't know, let's say I used to work drilling rigs. It can be physically demanding. Like it can be very physically demanding. You can be lifting heavy stuff, throwing tongs, heavy equipment, stuff like that. That's your gym. That is your workout. You don't need to work out afterwards. Can you? Sure. If you have the energy and you're recovering properly, why not? Right? But if you get home and you're like, man, I'm tired. I don't know if I want to lift today. It's totally fine. You literally got to work out all day long. Right? So essentially what I'm trying to say is no need to feel guilty. Okay. Within context, if you're an individual who is working, let's just say like an 8-hour day, and it's not super demanding, but you're still too fatigued to work out, then you need to address the root cause of what's causing this fatigue: inflammation, gut health, poor neurotransmitter production, poor adrenal function, whatever, liver, overburden of toxins, you name it. Address that, and then that will change, and you'll have that motivation to work out, right? You will have that discipline to work out. But at the end of the day, right, you can still achieve health without the gym. Yes, there are tons of health benefits from the gym, but if you're making yourself feel so guilty about exercising, about not exercising, that's kind of working against you. It kind of defeats the purpose, right? So don't ever feel guilty. What's the best way to relax after training? Does it even matter? It ridiculously matters. So what I mean by that is, as soon as you're done training, you want to try to get into a parasympathetic state, which is a rest and digest state, as fast as possible. Yes, this can be done with food because a high amount of carbohydrates can blunt cortisol. Like insulin can blunt cortisol. But this is where breathing can really come in. So like diaphragm breathing, box breathing. So like inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 7, exhale for 7 seconds, or something along the lines of that. Just longer releases. Take less breaths per minute. That's a very good way to calm the system down. With the diaphragm breathing, you can push on your stomach. Stretching and foam rolling can help calm you. I don't look at them as great tools in terms of muscle function and stuff, but in the aspect of activating the parasympathetic nervous system, I think it's an amazing tool. So there's those ways that you could do that. But I find for me personally, because let's say, you're tired after your workout, just lay down, do some diaphragm breathing. Lay on your back. Put your fingers into your stomach, breathe into your fingers, hold, and then slowly exhale, and do that for anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes. And that will really help get you into that parasympathetic nervous system. Supplements as well can really help. Like theanine and magnesium, for example, are good ways to promote GABA, which is your calming neurotransmitter, and get you into a more calm, restorative state post-workout. And I did mention food. Food can help, but make sure your heart rate has come down. You don't want to be ingesting a lot of food when your heart rate's through the roof, because it can disrupt digestion and lead to issues. So there's that huge talk about the anabolic window and everything, and research has shown you don't have to be as concerned as we made it out to be. I wouldn't go hours without eating, but you could go up to 45 minutes. Get that heart rate down and then eat. Okay. I have elderly parents. What's the best exercises and supplements I can encourage them to take? So in terms of exercise, that's where you want to seek out a professional. I don't want to really say anything on here because without proper supervision and stuff, bad things could happen or whatnot. So that's where, just seek out professional help, whether that be a personal trainer, physiotherapist, whichever. In terms of exercise, it depends what their body's doing and, so on and so forth, past injuries and health conditions and whatnot. Okay. So that was just seek out professional help. But in terms of supplements, ones that you'd be relatively safe, once again, those disclaimer, seek out professional help and everything. But omegas, like omega-3s, especially higher in DHA for cognitive development, or well, I guess you're not at we'll say cognitive protective capacity, because there's not a lot of development going on at that point. But also like a good ratio of EPA though, which is the anti-inflammatory aspect. So omegas can go a long way. A very high quality multivitamin, lots of minerals, because we look at elderly suffer from osteoporosis and whatnot. So lots of minerals, boron, calcium, things like that to help with bone and teeth health. And obviously it's going to be pretty hard pressed for hormone production at an elderly age, but things like boron also can help humanophore with testosterone, fenugreek, chasteberry for progesterone or progesterone in itself. Consult your doctor first, things like that. But just quality nutrients, right? And then HCl. Once again, seek help. Make sure you're okay to take HCl, which is stomach acid, because if you look at the research, it really plummets with age. And then, so this is where the elderly can become nutrient deficient because they could eat the highest quality of foods, but they may not be assimilating the abundance of nutrients out of them. B vitamins from methyl donors and stuff like that. That was kind of a complex topic, and that is something I actually should make a whole video on. So, but yeah, when it comes to exercises, consult a professional. Last one. I have recently picked up an injury, and is there anything I can take to eat to help eat to help recover? So in terms of recovering from an injury, like a site injury, let's say, for example, BPC 157 and TB 500, or also known as thymosin beta 4, are ridiculously good. If you do your research on them, you will see that they are known as the Wolverine peptide, and that's because they really expedite healing. So they're peptides, and they work awesome there. I myself suffered a quad injury, and it was ridiculous. Like, injected the two, and bam, it was healed up in no time at all. So that's really good for recovery. Obviously, overall health and well-being is going to really help, controlling that immune response goes a long way and whatnot. But in terms of like actually stepping past the norm, BPC and TB500 and thymosin beta 4 are huge. Growth hormone, get high quality stuff though. And growth hormone is not taboo. Yes, excessive use. Once again, bodybuilding gave it a really bad name, but growth hormone is the fountain of youth. It's amazing, right? So that can really help. Things like alpha lipoic acid also supports mitochondrial health. There's a lot actually that you could do. Once again, that's probably a pretty big topic that I should make a video on. But with that being said, injuries are not something to lightly mess around with. Make sure you are, consulting a professional, but do your research, use at your own discretion, disclaimer, but BPC 157 and thymosin beta 4 are also known as TB 500. The Wolverine peptide is really awesome. Very, very awesome. So I'm going to want to try to do, like I said, I want to try to do a bunch of these. Okay. So if you have any questions, pop them in the comments or shoot me a DM, or I'll keep putting up those little ask me anythings on the Instagram stories. Don't hesitate to ask, because I think this is good, because I know people are wondering things, and like I was previously saying in this video, we kind of forget where we came from. So sometimes it's hard for me to think of what beginners would be thinking of. And when I consult like my clients, like, hey, what's the question you might be wondering, so I can make some content? Well, they've been doing this for a while as well, so they kind of forget as well. So like, don't be afraid to just, hey, look, this is a question that I have. There's no stupid questions, okay? Everyone starts somewhere, and if you're wondering, well, I could probably answer, okay? So anyways, if you guys like that video, please hit the like and subscribe button, and follow me on Instagram at that.coach.curtis.